I remember very distinctly growing up as a child in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And when we reached the end of the Haggadah, of the narration, prior to Nirtzah, when we saw that there was wine in the kos of Eliyahu Hanavi, when we poured our fourth kos upon which the remaining of Hallel would be recited, we would open the door and we would beseech Hashem Yisparach, Shvo Chamoska El Hagoyim Asher Lo Yada'ucha, that he should pour out his wrath upon the nations that have not recognized him, and upon all the governments that have taken upon themselves to effectively seek the destruction of the nation of Jacob. And I always thought to myself, who are we talking about? Baruch Hashem, we weren't living in fear in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and certainly not when we moved to Far Rockaway and in New York, and in all the neighborhoods, Baruch Hashem, that I've had the schus of serving as a Mara de Asra. So what are we really asking when we turn to Kodesh Baruch Hu and we implore him? Shvocha Moscha El Hagoyim Asher Lo Yada'ucha. And until this year, I need to admit that I didn't have a good answer. I thought to myself, of course, all the Arab countries, Iran that seeks the destruction of Israel on a daily basis, let alone an annual basis. But this year particularly, with the attacks that I, and no doubt you as well, have read about, upon the sprung Jewish community, whether it be in Williamsburg or Monsey or Far Rockaway or North Miami Beach, let alone in Eretz Yisrael, of late in the past 10 days, that there's been an assault not only on the Kever Yosef, but on members of the IDF and on members of the Jewish community throughout the land of Israel. Well, I think to myself, how deeply we need pray. Shvocha Moscha El Hagoyim Asher Lo Yada'ucha. And with the Ukraine being under attack by Russia, and all of us having been reared in a free society, the United States of America, one of the most wonderful countries in the entire world. Indeed, it is the Medina Shel Chesed vis-a-vis Klal Yisrael. And yet we see it respond to the Ukrainian situation with any and every kind of economic boycott and with a cutting off of our reliance upon the Russian regime. But at the end of the day, the President of the United States of America almost every day speaks of the fact that there is genocide that is occurring in the Ukraine. And indeed it is. And whereas we were taught that never again, after 1945, after the horrific Shoah that Klal Yisrael experienced far greater and far more than any other people, we were promised by the world, never again. The world will never again remain silent, will never again remain deafened to the cries and the pitiful woes of people who have been singled out by another regime for effective decimation. And all of us have seen the carnage. All of us have read and seen films of and pictures of the men, women, and children who were thrown into the pits just like during the Holocaust and machine gunned down. All of us have seen the murder of husbands and wives and parents in front of their children. The trampling of individuals in cars by tanks. All of us have seen the genocide. And yet, nothing other than boycotts, nothing other than public sanction, nothing other than harangue in public of the Russian regime has occurred. And that genocide continues, and that war continues. So indeed, when I come to the end of my Seder this year, and all of us approach the conclusion of our Seder, and we have narrated the magnificent extrication of Klal Yisrael from the land of Egypt by the outstretched hand of God and God alone, we turn to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and as the Maharabi Prague explains, Shvocha Moscha El Hagoyim, says the Maharabi Prague, V'hanira liba taima dahach min haga, that's an understandable minute to me, says the Maharal, for the reason that we say this, is shekevan shahalal nirtza bola orer rachamim v'ratzon ha'elyon aleinu shenizke lihios nirsif ne'kodesh baruch hu v'hu yisratze itanu v'yigalenu b'geula shlema, that we approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of the Haggadah. And after we've spoken about our magnificent relationship with him, being chosen by him as his nation, being selected as his people, and we ask that he bring us so close, reconnected with him in Eretz Yisrael, so that much as every member of Klal Yisrael by Azashir said, Zekeli v'adveyo, this is my God and I shall glorify him, and Targum Onkelos learns, V'adveyo comes from the lashon of Nava, of establishing a proper place, an abode for the Almighty, namely the Beis HaMikdash. Whereas all of the Goyim, historically and during our times, have said, Lo yida'ucha, much as Paro said to Moshe Rabbeinu when he first presented himself before him and informed him to send out the people of God, responded Paro, Ko Arba, really? God has asked that I send the people forth? Mi Hashem asher eshma b'kolo. Who is God that I should listen to his voice and hearken to his command, the Shalach es Yisrael, to send forth his people? Lo yadati es Hashem. I don't know God. He ain't in my book of Kings. V'gam es Yisrael lo hashalech. I'm not sending forth the people of Israel. And we turn to Kodesh Baruch Hu, and we bait the Ribbon Shalom. Shvocha moscha el hagoyim. At the end of the day, there is only the relationship that we have with you. We can depend, ein lonu lehishoin. We can only depend upon you, Hashem Yisborach. Smile upon us. Have compassion upon us. Redeem us. Redeem the people of Israel in the land of Israel and scattered abroad through the diaspora. And indeed, let it be a Leil Shimurim, an evening set aside for the redemption of Klal Yisrael. Benisa nigalo avasedim in Mitzrayim, and according to one shita, in the time to come, Benisan, we will be redeemed again. Asidinly, Goel. Let this year be the year of redemption. Let this year be the year that all of humanity learns what it means to recognize the presence of the Almighty and that he's still running the world. Let it be a Geula Shlema. And next year, Mirz Hashem, as we say, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim at the conclusion of our Seder, let us see that fulfillment, and let us be able to experience a magnificent Seder in Tav Shin Pei Gimel in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, a wonderful kosher and Zis and Pesach to all.